Hey, what a great day to be a patriot, isn't it? You know, I'm going to talk to you about something that maybe you've already thought of, but the latest move that we see by the media. I want you to understand everything I'm saying through the prism of current events. We didn't just get here overnight. Because right now, by a show of hands, I want to know how many of you believe in borders and sovereignty and the rule of law. You are all white supremacists. According to I'm sorry, your skin may not be white, and your skin may not be white, and a whole lot of the rest of you may not be white, but according to the media, you are. Now, why are they doing that? They're not doing that because they believe that. They're doing that because it's one of the most effective ways to silence people. Okay? And by the way, a lot of you are probably looking at my forehead and wondering if I was visiting in prison with Charles Manson. And no, I was not trying to tattoo anything there. I was in Boston yesterday in the middle of the melee. No, I'm kidding. Okay, it's a little more embarrassing. I was trying to tackle a wood chipper, and I made the mistake of trying to push a log down that wasn't being obedient, and it came flying back like a missile. And you know, it was funny. My first thought was, I'm glad it didn't break my glasses. I should have been saying, I'm glad it didn't take out my eye. But anyway, let's just go back a minute. Do you remember the Minutemen? Okay, I was the first Minutemen, and then I became a leader of the Minutemen here in the state of California. And the media specialized in calling us names. And they would call us, at the time, they don't even really use this term anymore, but they would call us xenophobes and racist, Nazis. But the term that collectively now includes anyone who is essentially, let's say, to the right of Jeb Bush, is now considered to be a white nationalist. If you speak out on borders, you're a white nationalist. And we saw this with the Minutemen. We saw the demonization, the denigration. It's all straight out of Alinsky's playbook. You see, and they're able to do incredible things once they control the language. So when we were with the Minutemen, they were trying to change the word illegal alien into undocumented hero, or undocumented worker, or undocumented citizen, or undocumented whatever. You know, in protest, when I was in the California State Assembly, the speaker gives out a leather notebook with the seal of the state. And it was a very convenient thing to bring my legislation to the floor. And then I found a bumper sticker that I thought was very fitting, so I put it right across the front of it that said, "My assault weapon's not illegal, it's just undocumented." But you know, and I have that on the back of my pickup truck. And the point is, we have to deal with ridicule and Alinsky tactics using ridicule and Alinsky tactics for their stupidity. Do you remember the moment when then candidate Trump was asked a stupid question by the media? And you're probably thinking, yeah, he was asked hundreds of thousands of stupid questions. But do you remember that one moment where he said, "That's a stupid question. Ask me a better one, or I'm moving on to somebody else." And that's the way we have to treat the dialogue and the narrative that is illegal immigration. But because of what they have done by taking over the language, they now, as you know, control all the levers of power in our institutions. They have turned our schools into indoctrination centers where they are teaching and training the next generation that anyone who speaks these code words is a hate monger. And as soon as you're classified as a hate monger, no one can actually have any congress with you. They're not supposed to do business with you. They're not supposed to be seen talking with you. If they're seen taking a photograph with you, they could lose their job or their clients or critical and important relationships and positions within institutions and government. And so when you see the damage they've been able to do, and then let's take a look at another institution. Our elected assembly and state senate, our Congress. Well, in California, using the guise of illegal immigration to sort of take out 30% of the people in California and render them neutered and push them to the side as if they're not even human. Does this remind you of the tactics of a certain someone whose name starts with H and ends with R? Yeah. So what they've done is they have now created a perfect recipe for massive voter fraud in the state of California. And they're doing the exact same thing out of the exact same playbook, which is if you say one word about voter fraud, you're not just called names. They intentionally isolate and ridicule you. You remember when President Trump said there was massive voter fraud in California? And we now know there is massive voter fraud in California. We always knew it. Now we have proof, right? We found out that in many counties there's actually more voters than there are voter age people. And, you know, even if you do Common Core math, that doesn't add up. So I wrote an op-ed for Breitbart. I don't know if you, and how many here follow me on Breitbart? Awesome. And by the way, when they call Breitbart the alt-right, what the heck does that mean? We're the alt-truth. We actually tell you what's happening. But and see, the voter fraud, I served with a guy who's now Secretary of State. When Oregon had a voter ID card, a driver card. I don't know if you know this, but Oregon actually did a referendum on the voter, on the driver card, which is basically a driver's license. They did a referendum and they killed it in a state that is bluer than California. 2/3 of Oregonians hate the idea of people being on the road who are legally present in the country. So, and I was an advisor on that campaign, and it was all run grassroots. And then they passed a law in Oregon to get more voter participation that everyone who has a driver's license automatically is registered to vote. Well, in Oregon, that's not a big deal because the illegal aliens do not have a driver's license. In California, they did the exact same thing a couple of months later, and now it's one more step and one more brick in the wall. And let me tell you something. On the Secretary of State's website, they tell you that if somebody, because when you're automatically registered to vote, you do have to sign a voter card and send it back. They want your signature. They also want you to affirm whether or not you are a U.S. citizen. If you fail to affirm whether or not you're a U.S. citizen, what do you think happens? It should be sent back and maybe confirmed, right? No, not nothing. Nothing would be great. They put you on the voter rolls, and they intentionally have put in quotes, treat as normal. It is not a mistake. This is their intent. They are using illegal immigration to populate the state with future voters to keep them in power. It isn't about immigration. It isn't about race. It's about power and control. That's the agenda. And look, you might ask, how can we combat that? Right? Well, it was funny. I was hanging out with a group outside, and they reminded me of a story. How many of you saw the Free Claudia campaign? There was some lady who was young girl in college being deported from the country, and her only crime was, that she had been caught up in a raid, right? That's what they made it sound like, and they were raising money, and they were raising their fists in the air. She was the new socialist hero, and I was asked to do a story on it for Breitbart, and I actually dug into the news stories. Los Angeles Times made it sound like she was peripherally related in some possible fashion to some kind of a drug raid at her apartment complex. What they didn't bother to tell you is her dad was the guy who was dealing drugs, and the authorities had found him out when he was getting ready to transfer the drugs and then distribute them on the streets. 700,000 street doses of cocaine. That's what he transferred from one car to another. And when they raided the apartment and found the mother, who was illegally present in the country, the daughter was off at school. She came into the picture later. And at the bottom of the LA Times story, it said, oh, and she never applied for DACA, right, for Obama's program, because she lacked the filing fee. So in calling up a Border Patrol agent who was very talkative and on our side, which was kind of awesome, she said, because I said, hey, do you know how much that DACA fee is? She said, I have the exact same question, and I looked it up, and it was $499. $499. They had $500,000 in a bag in the closet where she lived. Bottom line. So when I wrote the story, I put the facts in. And I put the links to the LA Times and all the other people who basically didn't just lie by omission. They lied intentionally, they misled, and they mischaracterized to push an agenda and a narrative that has stolen our rights and our power from the people and transferred it to a tiny elite and a cabal. And there is something we can do about that, and we're going to be talking about it here. I'm glad to be here. God bless you and Godspeed.